Hello everyone, my name is Melissa and welcome to my brand new channel. For the grand opening of my YouTube channel, we're going to be doing 10 looks using the new Jeffree Star Bloodlust palette. So if you're thinking of buying it or if you have had your eye on it for a long time, we're going to be testing versatility on this little baby today. It has a lot of really beautiful shades, and not to mention the packaging is absolutely gorgeous, but it's a little bit on the pricey side and it's a little bit of a niche palette because not all the colors are neutral. Actually, most of them are pretty bright. So I'm going to be testing how they apply the pigmentation of each shadow and if they are versatile enough to make different types of looks, and if it varies from like a smoky eye or to a neutral look or just an everyday look that we can create with this palette. So if you're interested in any of the looks, then keep on watching, and at the end of the looks I'm going to tell you my overall thoughts, if I recommend it to you, who I recommend it to. It's not a review because there are already a lot of reviews out there, just my overall opinion of the palette in general. So keep watching. I started by priming my eyes with Urban Decay Primer Potion. From the Bloodlust palette, I applied the shade Monarchy all over my crease with a fluffy blending brush. On my eyelids, I put a thin layer of this liquid eyeshadow from Flormar in the shade Captivating Sand, but any cream eyeshadow with a green undertone would work just fine. I blended out the edges and applied a second layer for a more intense color. Then I took a flat shader brush in the shade Sworn Enemy. I sprayed the brush with some setting spray and applied the eyeshadow all over my lid. I blended out in the crease with more of the shade Monarchy, and I reapplied Sworn Enemy and blending him back and forth until I got the intensity I wanted. Then with a flat brush, I applied Your Majesty on my brow bone, but I realized it has a gray undertone and it looked a little bit weird as a brow bone highlight, so I tried to brush it off and get it to be more subtle. This color is really pigmented, but this is actually the only look where I use this shade as a highlight. Then I applied the shade Royal Pain with a blending brush on my crease in between the shade Monarchy and the brow bone highlight. I extended that same color in like a V shape on my outer crease for a more elongated eye look. Then I used some black eyeliner on my top and bottom waterline. On the bottom, I also applied it on the outer part of my lash line. I blended it with a flat liner brush before it dried, and with a pencil brush and the shade Sworn Enemy, again sprayed with setting spray after packing the color on the brush, then placed the color on my bottom lash line. With the same brush and the shade Dungeon, I placed it over Sworn Enemy because I wanted a darker look, and I extended it a little bit like a cat eye. Then with a clean brush, I took the shade Royal Pain again and used that to blend the bottom lash line. I also applied a tiny little bit of Dungeon on my crease, but very little because this shade is really pigmented. On my inner corner, I applied Beauty Sleep and also on my brow bone, but since I used that shade Your Majesty before, it looked a little bit gray. I blended it out until it just looked like a subtle gold highlight. Then I took some liquid eyeliner and I did sort of a cat eye, more or less thin. To finish off the look, I curled my lashes and applied a coat of lengthening mascara to my top and bottom lashes. For this look, I started applying Tarte Shape Tape Concealer as my eyeshadow base. Then I went in with Royal Pain on my crease, making a V shape on the outer corner, and I blended it really well. With a flat shader brush and the shade Vivid Mood, I did sort of a halo eye by leaving the center of my lid without any color. And with the same shade, I extended it out into a cat eye shape, and I blended the edges with Royal Pain. With a flat brush, I applied Betrayal just in the center of my lid. And I went back in with Vivid Mood to intensify the purple and blend in with a shade in the center. Then I applied Wet Jewel in the middle of my lid using my finger. I went back in with Royal Paint in my crease and extended it higher and outwards to get a more intense pink. On my lower lash line, I also applied Royal Paint and connected it on the outer corners. With an angled brush closer to my lower lash line, I applied Vivid Mood and also connected it on my outer corner. On my lower waterline, I applied a purple pencil eyeliner. I then applied Bleeding Heart in my inner corners and took the color higher to connect with the purple in the crease. I curled my lashes and applied a good coat of mascara. Finally, with the shade Beauty Sleep, I applied it right on my inner corner, just on the edge of the red, closer to my nose than to my tear duct, and I also applied a little bit on my brow bone. I started with Royal Paint on my crease and made a V-shape on the outer corner of my eye, blending it really well with a medium crease brush. Then I blended it even more with the same brush and the shade Monarchy. With an angled eyeshadow brush and the shade Blood Queen, I applied it all through the crease and the outer corner, blending it a little bit with the same brush after packing the color. Then with a smaller crease brush, I blended it more using Blood Queen and Royal Paint. With a smaller brush, I applied Dungeon to darken the crease, but without covering the eyeshadow we applied before. Then with a pencil brush in the shade Executioner, I packed the color right on the outer corner and extended it out into more of a cat eye. Then I blended that with Dungeon and Blood Queen just so it's not too black. I then did a cut crease with a concealer brush and my Tarte Shape Tape Concealer, covering only 2/3 of my eyelid. I first made the shape around the crease, then I covered it all with concealer, and I tapped with my finger on the outer edge to blend it in with the eyeshadow we had already applied. I took some Beauty Sleep on a flat shader brush, sprayed it with some setting spray, and I packed on the eyeshadow all over the cut crease. On the edge of the cut crease, I blended a little bit just to disguise some imperfections with my lines, and I also blended the outer edge with some Blood Queen and Dungeon. I then applied some black eyeliner on my lower lash line, leaving the inner third of the lash line free. With an angled brush in the shade Vile Serpent, I applied over the black eyeliner and connected it with the eyeshadow on the upper lid. Then with a pencil brush, I took more Vile Serpent and intensified the blue a little bit more. With that same brush, I applied Blood Queen just under the blue and blending the two together. With a fluffy brush and the shade Royal Paint, I blended that lower lash line and connected it to the upper lid. I then made a thin cat eye using Maybelline Gel Eyeliner and an angled brush. I used my eyeshadow as a guide for the cat eye shape, and I also applied some black eyeliner to my waterline. I curled my eyelashes and applied mascara. On my inner corner, I applied some Beauty Sleep, and on the inner third of my lower lash line, I applied Wet Jewel. On the very edge of the cut crease, I applied Urban Decay Glitter Liner in the shade Grind. I did 2 to 3 coats to get a more intense glitter payoff. And finally, on my brow bone, I applied Jeffree Star Highlighter in the shade Frozen Peach. I started with concealer as a base on my whole eyelid and crease. I set the concealer with the shade Your Majesty just on my eyelid, and the rest of my eye I set it with a little bit of translucent powder. With a medium crease brush and the shade Deviant, I applied it on my eyelid and crease and blended it really well. I applied it twice to get a more opaque look. On the outer part of my crease, I applied a mix of Vivid Mood and Hiking, but very lightly, just to bring a little bit of dimension to the eye. I applied Take the Crown on my inner corner. Then I took a mix of Vivid Mood and Hiking on my lower lash line. Finally, I curled my eyelashes and applied mascara on my top and bottom lashes. I started with concealer as a base to neutralize my skin tone and for the eyeshadow to adhere better to my eyelids. Using a firm flat shader brush, I started off with Wet Jewel, spraying the brush with some setting spray and packing it on the bottom half of my eyelid. I then defined a cat eye shape with the same eyeshadow and an angle brush. With a Periwinkle Blue liquid eyeliner, I outlined the eyeshadow very carefully to get clean lines. I did 2 coats of eyeliner to get a good color payoff. Then I applied glitter liner on top of the eyeshadow. I'm using Urban Decay in the shade Grind. Using a Q-tip, I cleaned some eyeshadow transfer that got on the rest of my eyelid, and then I applied a mix of Royal Pain and Monarchy very lightly on my crease. The same 2 shades I applied on my lower lash line with a pencil brush. I curled my eyelashes and applied mascara. I then used the shade Scandal Water and a very small brush to set and mattify the blue liner. Finally, I applied the shade Deviant on my inner corners, blending it up into the crease. Now for the most simple look in this whole video. I primed my eyes with concealer and then set it with some translucent powder. I applied Monarchy with a medium blending brush all over my crease. It doesn't have to be very precise as long as it's well blended. Then I used a red liner. I'm actually using a waterproof lip liner. I started by mapping out the shape of my liner. And then with an angle brush dipped in the lip liner, I perfected my lines and made a small cat eye. With that same angled brush, I took the shade Bleeding Heart and applied it over the red liner. I like the shade because it's not completely matte, so it gives a slight sheen to the eyeliner. Then I added some more Monarchy on my crease and also applied it along my lower lash line. I finished up my look with some mascara on my top and bottom lashes. With a fluffy brush in the shade Royal Pain, I applied it all over my crease and extended it outwards to create a cat eye shape. With the same shade and a pencil brush, I applied it on my bottom lash line, connecting it with the upper lid. I then blended the pink a little bit with the shade Monarchy. With a light concealer, I started outlining along the crease and filled in all over the lid with the same concealer. Then with a flat shader brush and the color Pink Magic, I sprayed the brush with setting spray and applied the eyeshadow all over where we put concealer. I packed on the color really well. You can also use your finger to cover the area faster and get more opacity. On the edges, I applied it with an angle brush to have more precision. I then did a cat eye with liquid eyeliner. On the edge of the cut crease, I applied Urban Decay glitter liner in the shade Grind. On my inner corners, I applied Wet Jewel. And to finish up the look, I curled my lashes and applied mascara. I started this look by priming my eyelids with Urban Decay Primer Potion. From my crease up to my brow bone, I primed with my Tarte Shape Tape. Then I set only the concealer with some translucent powder. Then with a navy kohl liner or cream eyeshadow, I covered my whole eyelid and I blended the edges with a fluffy brush, taking some product with the brush to help me blend better. Over the blue base, I applied Vile Serpent with a flat shader brush and blended it on the crease with the same shade, extending the shape a little bit above the crease. Then I took Scandal Water with a blending brush and I applied it above Vile Serpent, blending in the two really well. On the outer edge of the crease, I applied Vivid Mood and went back in with Vile Serpent until it was really well blended in this area. I also took Vivid Mood above the crease on the inner area, just above Scandal Water. On my lower lash line, I applied this purple cream eyeshadow stick, extending outwards to connect with Vivid Mood. And I also applied it on the waterline. Before the cream shadow dried, I blended it with Vivid Mood, and then just below that, I applied High King with a pencil brush, blending it really well. Then with the shade Monarchy, I blended all the edges. This shade is very similar to my skin tone, so if it doesn't work for you, then just use some pressed powder or some matte bronzer if you want to make this look a little bit warmer. I then curled my eyelashes and applied a good coat of volumizing mascara. To finish the look, I applied Take the Crown on my inner corners, bringing it up to blend in with the crease. For this look, I primed my eyelids with concealer and I set it with translucent powder. With the shade Scandal Water, I started making a halo eye shape, packing the color really well but leaving the center of the eyelid alone. Then I took Deviant to blend in the crease. I took the shade Pink Magic on my finger and I packed it on the center of my lid. I blended the edges with a small brush and more of the shade Scandal Water. With a pencil brush, I applied High King on the lower lash line and connected it on the outer corners. Then with the same brush, I applied Royal Paint and blended the pink and smoked it out. Also with Royal Paint, but now with a fluffy brush, I applied a little bit above my crease and blended with the purple. Off camera, I intensified the purple a little bit more and extended the shape outwards. And now I'm applying Wet Jewel with my finger on the center of my lids to make the pink more glittery. On my inner corner, I applied Wet Jewel. First, I applied it dry, but then I wanted it to be brighter, so I sprayed my brush with setting spray after packing on the color, and I placed it just in the inner corner. Then I applied the purple eyeshadow stick on my waterline. I then did a cat eye with a black eyeliner, and I applied a good coat of mascara, which for some reason I didn't film, but that finishes up the look. For our final look, I prepped my eye with some Shape Tape and then I set it with translucent powder. Before I put on any eyeshadow, I'm baking my under eye very generously with powder because I'm going to use the black eyeshadow in the palette, which supposedly has a lot of fallout. First, I applied this liquid eyeshadow by Rude Cosmetics in the shade Zodiac Dreams. I did this step because I wanted to start with a dark sticky base, and I wanted to see if the silver glitter makes any difference once I applied the black shadow on top. I blended it a little bit with my finger, and after it dried, I did a second coat with a brush, this time blending the edges, and I extended the color a little bit above my crease. Okay, here it comes. I took the shade Executioner with a flat dense brush, and I sprayed it with some setting spray. I applied this shade all over the gray base, but I noticed that applying it really wet, you lose almost all of the glitter. So I dipped the brush again in the pan. My brush is still damp, but not freshly sprayed, you know? So I applied it little by little and packing it really well to conserve as much glitter as I can. If you blend this shadow a lot, then you lose most of the glitter. That's why I wanted the dark base, but it's really not necessary because this shade is already really pigmented. it does have a lot of fallout, so if you end up using this, then you definitely want to do your eyeshadow first before your foundation. Okay, now with a small brush, I applied Dungeon just on the edge of Executioner, and I blended it really carefully. Then I blended that purple with a little bit of Royal Pink. The black shadow had so much fallout that I had to redo my foundation on my nose, my mouth, and my chin. So after touching that up, I'm going to move on to the lower lash line. I started with that same purple eyeshadow stick I've been using the whole video on my waterline. All along the lash line, I applied black pencil eyeliner, leaving the inner corner free. Then I blended out the black liner with the shade Dungeon on a pencil brush and connected it to the upper lid on the outer corners. Then I blended that shade with Royal Pink. On my inner corner, I applied Beauty Sleep, and I also applied it on my brow bone. With an angled brush, I applied just a little bit of wet jewel on my inner corner without covering Beauty Sleep, just very close to the tear duct, and I applied this shade Wet to make it shinier. Finally, I curled my lashes and applied some mascara on my top and bottom lashes. Okay, so as you could tell, we were able to create 10 very different looks from one another, from a very simple cat eye to a more elaborate smoky eye with a cut crease and a different shape eyeliner, and that was all using this palette. I did use some eyeliners and some cream eyeshadows, which you may be able to find in a lot of different brands, or maybe you have them already in your collection. As I said at the beginning of the video, this is not a review, this is just my personal opinion on this palette, and in my personal opinion, I really like it. I mean, just look at it, it's beautiful. The palette in itself, the packaging is amazing. I've never seen anything similar to this. Just the shape and the material and just how it feels and how it looks on the shelf. But as far as the product goes, I am a really big fan of pinks and purples, so I'm definitely the target for this palette. I really enjoyed every single color in this palette. The formulas are beautiful. The mattes and all the shimmers are extremely pigmented, and I think that is always a guarantee when we buy a Jeffree Star palette. That being said, I don't think this is a palette meant for beginners in makeup. I think some of the shades are a little bit harder to work with and a little bit harder to blend if you're not experienced in makeup and experienced in using bright colored eyeshadows. Then you may have a little bit of a hard time with it. But if you are a makeup junkie and would love to have this just as display in your collection, then I definitely recommend it. I think I'm going to be using it a lot just because I really like the pinks and purples, and I know I can get a lot of looks out of this palette, even way more than the 10 that I just showed you. So I'm definitely going to be reaching for it a lot. But I'm not going to be using it at all for traveling because it's just so bulky and so big. It's just a palette to have at home and to play with makeup whenever you feel like it. But for traveling, definitely not an option. And that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Please, if you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. It would help me a lot, and share it with anyone who's interested in buying this palette. Also, leave me a comment saying which one of the looks was your favorite, and if you recreate one, send me a photo to my Instagram, which I will have linked down below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click on the bell button to get notified whenever I upload a new video, and I will see you on the next one.